Well, I turned it over to the mayor, Commissioner Blackman would like to make a motion.
Oh,
Yeah, I would like to make a motion. If I get a second, I'll tell you why. We talked about this for a long time. I'd like to take funding this, property tax funding this off the table. Just like to make that motion.
Are you saying we won't fund it by additional property tax?
That's right. That's my motion. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, I said I'd tell you why. All right. Besides politicizing our county employees, which you will, they go to church, they can play ball, they'll see folks at the county and hate that they had to raise their property taxes over getting a raise. Besides that, I did a little algebra first time since high school. You do get to use it. And I interpolated to January 1st of 2026 what the populations of our two major cities are going to be, okay? They're going to each be right at 50,000. And by growing 5 times faster than the county, which they are, we're going to be about 151, which means 65% of the population of this county will be in 2 big cities, Lebanon and Mount Juliet. And they primarily get all of their government services through their own employees, and they don't have pay problems. And they've never raised property taxes to pay them extra. So, how are those folks going to feel? 65% of our county going to feel when they're going to be paying to raise property tax unless they get thrown in jail or get a divorce. They're never going to really use it.
or educate their students,
Pardon me?
or educate their students.
Well, this isn't going to give any raises to anybody.
I know, but I'm just saying that's what our county tax dollars go to, is education.
I'm talking about.
And they reap the benefits of that.
To give raises.
Employees.
That's the reason I made my motion. I got a second. The other thing is, and this is the worst reason not to do it, but they'd be paying their property taxes probably January, February of 2026, right around the time most people be picking up their petitions. Probably the worst reason not to do it, but probably a reason.
Well,
Motion, and second, any further?
I can tell you that I got elected not to get, I didn't run to get elected to worry about being reelected. And I've voiced my concern over spending $84 million on a building and not raising property taxes, or building schools and not raising property taxes, and talking about the jail and 2 fire stations, not saying we didn't need it, but we flipped pennies over into debt service to be able to pay for those. And I guess I just feel that everything's on the table now. I'm one vote. If we have to fund raises by, technically, if you fund raises by property tax dollars or raising property tax, what about the other projects we did? It's just at the end of the, and that's what's my whole argument in the beginning. It's just the end of the rope is we're talking about salaries. If we would have done salaries first, like I wanted to do, and approved all the other buildings second, then we'd be worried about raising property taxes to build a jail or fire stations or schools. But instead, our employees are put last, and we say we're not going to do something to take care of them, and I just disagree with that.
We'll call for the question.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, we have been called for the question. All in favor of the motion to not raise property taxes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say aye.
No.
No.
1, 2, 3.
I need
It's
a
not
show
ready
of
to take
hands.
anything off the table. We don't even know what numbers we're talking about.
Could I make a point?
Yeah, make a
Point of
point.
order, that any vote you take right now has absolutely zero effect. You're not voting on a budget. So unless and until you're voting on a budget, this is moot.
Well,
It brings out the flavor of
Yeah.
commission here.
We don't even have numbers yet. I don't even know why we're doing this right this minute, because we have no data whatsoever. At this point in time, and the reason why we're in this meeting is because my understanding is we're gonna finally get some numbers as to how much this pay plan might cost and what our different options are. Hold on. So before we make decisions about revenue, let's find out what the expenditures are. Because we don't know what the expenditures are. We don't know what our total revenue is right now either. So I think this is very very premature. Which is why I voted no, because I'm not ready to make a decision on anything until I actually have data to make a decision with. We have no numbers at all at this point in time.
We're simply testing the flavor of this committee.
Yep.
That's it.
So,
I would like to, go ahead.
No, show hands, who votes
Yeah, show of hands, who voted aye,
not to raise taxes?
not to raise taxes?
Before we do a vote,
yeah,
Well, we're in the middle of a vote.
It's a no.
I mean,
I think it's a no, so we,
And so the noes were,
I don't have enough data to vote, so I abstain from this
Got time.
point in time.
Ooh, look who gets to break it.
You get to break a tie.
Be glad to.
well, we didn't raise hands for no's. We just raised hands for yeses.
I didn't raise hands at all.
1, 2, 3, and Mr. Smith is 4.
There's more than 4 people in the room.
Yeah, there's more and more people over here. You got, I don't know what these people voted for, but,
We got,
oh, not steering committee?
We're just trying to get all our facts together before we do it.
Yeah.
So I think,
we even have a quorum.
so,
We have a quorum?
I wasn't gonna derail the, I wasn't gonna derail the vote there and let you say whatever you wanna say, but I think the first thing, well, not yet. Because I think, Mr. Fields, do you have a quorum?
I have 8.
You have
Somebody's
9 members of this committee.
9 members here?
have 9.
Members steering committee are here, yes.
Do we?
Yes.
do?
Mr. Fields.
Are you on the Syrian best?
5, 6, 7,
We only have 8 then.
8,
Ms. Breeze, Ms. Weathers,
9.
Mr. Kurtz, Mr. Marlowe, and Mr. Smith are all here. That's 9.
So we barely made it.
Okay, so so you have a quorum, and you are welcome to make that vote as what you're saying, that the steering committee favors not raising property tax, and that's completely fine for you to do that, and then I'll carry on with my business and tell you why I got you here tonight and move forward. But as Aaron says, you making that call, you're just saying the flavor of this committee at this point says this. Because once I tell you what I've got you here for tonight, and then we move forward, it will come back to this committee to get a recommendation to go to budget and then county commission. Unless you're telling me right now as a committee, hey, stop what you're doing, we don't want to do the pay plan no more, and let's scratch it. We're supposed to review it this year because it's the second year. But I mean, if you want, I mean, this is what I brought you together tonight for was to kind of give you some numbers, but really get a guidance on where you want us to go when we start meeting with the elected officials and department heads. Bobby?
Okay, first of all, I'm all for paying our employees. That's not why I made the motion. I didn't really want to bring this up, but I'm going to. You've got 2 cities that are supplying so much, especially in emergency services. Mount Juliet doesn't use ambulances, they don't use fire trucks anymore. You start, well,
We need
Yeah,
to
they
remove
do.
mutual aid.
Yeah, and they, but at the end of the day, we're not talking tonight about funding it anyway.
okay.
Yeah, we're just getting a direction on what you would like for me to carry to the department heads and elected officials. Well, we're not talking about funding or raising taxes or any of that stuff tonight.
Right. I thought we were just getting data.
Mr. Marlowe. So if you're good, I don't know how you're voting it up and if it makes a difference either way, if it tied, I guess. Is that what it did? Well, it didn't tie because you got 4 and 4 and the abstaining. Yeah,
If it's not unanimous tonight, it fails.
gotcha. Okay, so let me start so I can get you out of here in time.
Messed him up, Bobby. He did.
No, it really didn't. It's good. I do thank you for coming tonight. And I thank you for investing the time that you've invested in this process. I do want to go back and just remind us where we've been. I'll be real brief with that. But a long time ago, commissions really said the way they want to compensate employees were benefits. And that's what they did instead of pay. And you've got a pretty good benefits package, I believe. And Kiana has kind of compared that to other folks. And we're good there. And then it came the time to where people said, I can go over to Williamson, Rutherford, Sumner, or Montgomery and make more money. And we kept hearing that, but we didn't think that was true, or we didn't know if it was true for every department that we had. So that's where the pay plan got started. We asked them to come in, look at our salaries based upon Williamson, Rutherford, Sumner, Montgomery, and we found out we needed to make some adjustments, and we made some pretty big adjustments to that. So we did that part and kind of got people kind of caught to where they needed to be in the market. And then you guys said, you know, how do we keep them there and not raise taxes? And so you guys said, hey, if your growth money is 3.5%, let's every year give them a 1.5% raise and 0.5% towards insurance. So you did that. And then we realized that probably there were some years that we didn't have that. So we said, what can we do to make sure that our employees each year, just to keep up with the market, get a 2% increase no matter what? Comes off the top, goes right to employees, and we don't come and ask you. And so you guys agreed to do a step system. So we developed a table that was 16 steps with salaries on there, and we stuck people's salaries in that table so that every time somebody moved, they got a 2% increase. The steps had nothing to do with years of experience. It just where their salary fell, and we wanted to give it we gave it a 16-step system to plug people in. Then once we did that, then this last year a little bit, people started saying, well, how come Johnny is on step 3, but he's been here 20 years? Well, it wasn't designed for it to be that way. It was designed just to make sure that all of our employees got a 2% increase. So you guys said, hey, look, you know, we want to do things a little bit different. And so we said, okay, let's let the steering committee get involved, and y'all kind of guide us on this process. Before, we had kind of worked the process the best we could between finance and HR and our office to try to do what we could do within our means without having to raise taxes. That was always the goal. But you guys said, hey, we want to look at some stuff, and we want you to think about that. So we got together, if you remember, and you guys gave us some direction. Number one, when you looked at it, you said, hey, we're okay with it being 16 steps. We're okay with it being a 2% increase between each one. And we're okay with continuing to pay longevity. But what we really want to know is how much is it going to cost us if we take our people by the time that they're in the job they're in right now, the current job they're in, not how long they've been with the county, but how long they've been a deputy or whatever, and plug them into this table we got. How much money is that going to cost us? The next thing he said was, you know, hey, and while we're doing that, let's look at that table, because it's been 2 years. We know we're falling behind. We've found some other people. How much do we need to raise that table up to be competitive? And then the last thing he said was, hey, you know, can we take it, right now you got everybody, if you got a new guy starting out, he don't reach 100% of market until he gets to year 8. Let's move that back to step 6, okay? So we looked at all 3 of those. Bobby brought up and said, hey, we've been doing it 50-50 with our comparison with public and private. Let's go 60% public and 40% private. Be a little bit more on that line, so we did that. Then he also said, hey, let's compare ourselves to Metro and B&A as well. So we did that with the benchmarks. So when we finished that, then we decided, okay, Kiana, finance, everybody went to work, Beth, and said, they went and met with all the departments and said, tell me on your roster, because we didn't have a system that told that, how long has Johnny been a deputy and Susie been a corporal and all of that. So we got that data, and then Beth went to work. And so tonight, when I had those figures, I wanted to come back with you and say, okay, because the February the 12th, we've got meetings scheduled to sit down with the sheriff and WEMA and other departments. What do I put in front of them? Do I put the Cadillac plan, as Kiana calls it, the one that we move it back to 6? We got the 10% step increase, the 10% table increase in there, and the tenure, and put that in front of one of those people, and they look at it and say, well, that's what I'm going to get, and then I come back to y'all and they say, oh, no, we ain't doing that. So I kind of wanted to give a direction, as I told you the money, because I've got a price for you that just plugging the people in that we've got today, in the table that we got, not raising the percentage rate according to what the market is, just that, to plug our people in to that table, that's $3.1 million.
How much?
$3.1 million, $3,120,902. So that's what that cost is. Now, with that, I want you to hear this part of it too. 99 of those people are going to get 10,000 or better. Okay, so it's going to be good for those people. But I got 596 people that won't receive a higher than a 2% increase because they're already pretty much in there.
So that's almost 600 of your 800 something employees that really are already kind of in target. You got 443 that won't receive anything because they're right on the scale as we speak. So that's that cost. So if you tell me that's what you want to do, that's the table we'll take. We'll go meet with all the department heads and stuff, and we'll go forward. If you said, well, no, really, I need you to find out what's it going to cost us if we decide that we want to raise that table. How much does that table need to go up? Well, according to the stuff that she gave me today, the table needs to go up 10%. So when you go up 10%, you take the tenure cost of 3.1, you go up the 10% on the table, and these are benefits included, by the way. That cost to do both of those is $9,179,690.
Reoccurring.
Reoccurring, yes, sir. So if you want to do that, that's what that cost would be. If you said, well, let's just raise the table. Let's just raise the table. It's going to be somewhere around almost $6 million, just to raise the table, not put people in tenure. It's going to be about $6 million. And then if you said, well, let's put people in tenure, let's raise the table 10%, and let's get them to get to market at step 6. What's that going to cost me? That's going to be $11,376,232. So those are the figures that we had, and so we just wanted a little bit of guidance. Now, what I'm asking you tonight is you say, here's what we want you to kind of go and start having those meetings for. We'll have the meetings. Then we'll take that data that we got. So if the sheriff's good, Joey Cooper's good, everybody's good, we're going to bring that back. We're going to present that to you again because you might say, well, so what is my deputy making? You know, we'll be able to give that to you because the sheriff has looked at it, checked off on it. Everybody's good with the department heads and elected officials. We'll bring that back to you and say, here's what everybody's approved, here's what you sent me for, here's what the cost is, and then you can make that recommendation to the budget committee, and then the budget committee will make a decision on how to fund it, unless you want to send a decision about how to fund it up there, but that's their call. You're just directing kind of what you want us to do, because you're in charge of directing the pay plan. So but I just didn't want to carry the Cadillac plan to them, and then you guys say, hey man, we can't do that. Let's get realistic. Carry this to them and see if this is good. So that's what I wanted to present to you. Mr. Jerry?
I want members of this body to understand something that has not been briefed to them yet, and that is about our insurance. We're talking big dollars. Talking about our insurance has gone up and it has not been increased. We have not increased it since 2016. And I remember years ago, when I believe you were the chairman of the insurance committee, we had to go back in and dig some extra money out to get through the year. This is the year we're gonna have to increase our insurance fund. We're spending a couple $1 million more than what we got per year, and we're gonna have, so that number, we're working on solutions, maybe get that down, but we ain't there yet, so just realize there's some other dollars out there that we're gonna need to sustain us where we are right now.
And as he says that, there are lots of things that we could use money for that if you decide to reach out and get revenue, me and Aaron's talked about those. But I didn't feel like that was a discussion for tonight and lay that on y'all. That would be when we get to budget time, and then we'll decide then. If you steer us to say, let's do this for our employees, then when we get to budget time and that requires a revenue, we may say, hey, insurance needs this, roads needs this. The land, we may say that at that time, but just leave that kind of with the budget committee. Y'all can make that recommendation to them, but you don't have to take that job on unless you just want to.
I guess that's what I'm a little confused.
Right.
We get into that every year, but how do we know what to recommend if we don't know? I don't know if I'm asking that right. Like, Aaron, what's your opinion? Like, is that a fair question?
I don't know exactly what you're asking.
Well, I guess like, well, that 10%,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I guess, I don't know, a little confused on how that would work.
All right, so let's talk.
Okay.
So the 10% puts the table, or our employees, at market level.
Right.
Okay? And that will require revenue that me and you don't have. So anything that we do here, or insurance, is going to have to come from some revenue that I don't have. So it's not like Aaron's going to say, hey, look, man, we got some extra money. I mean, we'll have $2 million sometime, And we normally take $1 million of that and put it towards the step. And I didn't put that $1 million in here for this step because this $3 million and one of getting a tenure in there, I didn't count on that because that's already been locked out for that 2% step increase for everybody. Okay? So like I said, 385 people will get extra because of the tenure, and then everybody will get the 2% step. That money is there. So there's another $1 million probably left in there that's left over that will go for any needs. But so anything that you approve is going to require more revenue. We can't say, let's wait till the budget time. Because we know at best we got 2 million, at best, I would think. Yes, sir?
So the 10%, that's 12%? That's the 2% plus the 10? So it's 8%.
Is what we raised that table to.
Right, but it's really
And then-
8%.
and we
You're not going to do both in the same year. You're not going to give
You don't have to.
a
No.
2% raise. So it really was 8% if you back off the 2%, right?
Well, I think we would do the 10%, okay?
And then not,
6 million, and take $1 million of it off because you got $1 million.
Right, okay.
So you're looking at 5.
Right.
Yes. But you're right, we wouldn't do both there. But you would need to do that.
But it ain't.
2% step, if you're just going to do the 10.
so it's a 5 and not a 6.
It would be. On that, yeah, yes, sir.
And not all this has to be done in 1 year either, right?
No, you could say, hey, look, Beth says 10% is the game right now. You could say, let's just do 8. Let's just do 6. Or let's do 5 this year. Let's do 5 next year. And then the following year will be a year that you would relook at the table again because you're doing it every 2 years. You could break that up. Yes, sir. I don't know how you'd break the tenure up, but you could break it up in half too. That'd take a little algebra, obviously.
Beth, you gonna give us some data?
The data that we gave you right there is what we got. We didn't run any numbers because there wasn't any sense of running them because we didn't know what you were going to tell us. So we didn't run any scales. We just run the total figure, and that's what I gave you. Now, Beth can answer any question you wanted to ask, but we didn't run the tables because we didn't know where you were. We just kind of wanted to give you the ballpark figure, and you give us you say, hey, let's just do the 10. And you say, hey, let's do both, or let's do all 3. That's really all I'm asking for tonight. And then she'll go back, she'll fix those tables, and she'll get it ready and go meet with the department heads.
This is a decision meeting then.
Sir?
This is a decision meeting then.
It's kind of just a guidance meeting. Just guide us kind of where you want me to go with it. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for me to just put out there what I'm thinking, we've heard 3.1 million for the lower, and then all the way up to 11.2.
I don't remember what the
or
figure was.
11 million, and that's reoccurring. And I'm thinking to myself that that's just strictly for employee pay. We're not talking about the future growth of departments' budgets because we've talked about property tax, and I know that no one wants to really talk about that, but I think about if it was ever decided to fund it through property tax, you have to look at also everybody's going to want a piece of their pie as well, meaning the growth of their department, how to plan forward. So I could see that, being a little bit larger number if we're going to look at taking care of the departments as well. So, that 11 million can probably increase to however much more that we think might be needed. And that's just kind of where my mind's going. We're just, and I think, you see I'm coming at.
I do, and I can tell you kind of what's happened in the past before. So let's just say this required 15 cents, okay? And then y'all will start making that conversation when you get the budget. 15 cents to do the pay plan. And then somebody will say, well, we really need to work on these county roads. Let's add 4 cents in to put back to work on county roads. And then Commissioner McFarland said, well, let's put 2 cents in the insurance. So a lot of times you're right. When you get the budget and you're going to say, well, if I'm going to do this, let's get this, this, and this, that conversation will happen at budget time. Yes.
I think with what we were figuring just a second ago, just for the 11.2 million, that's close to 15 cents of a property tax increase. Not counting what we just talked, what your examples there.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think is us that we need to also keep in mind while we're talking about property tax or how we're going to fund that. So
I think you just kind of also figure out, the biggest issue you said at the very beginning, let's put them people on that table based on years of experience. And if that's all you want to do this year, that's 3.1. Now let's get us to market because these deputies down here, do what?
We're gonna pay for 3.1.
That'd be
What's your
simple.
recommendation, Mayor?
Well, that'll be up to the budget committee when we get to meeting there.
What's your recommendation?
You're on the budget.
Don't go there.
I am on the budget.
What is your recommendation, sir?
That's a question I'm asking.
Yeah.
All we're doing is passing on the budget. And
You
I
are.
don't wanna put out there that we're wanting to give the employees a raise, and then we're like, well, we don't have the money.
Well, I can answer that for him probably. I mean, we're all smart people. I mean, we have no more money to be able to pull, as what Aaron said, we have no more rabbits to pull out of the hat. So the only generating, we're going to get property tax. I mean, that's going to be your logic answer.
Yeah.
I can get you, well,
Hang on one second. So,
What's your recommendation, Mayor?
so the recommendation, what we normally do is, once you give us some guidance, and we go run those numbers, and we get a solid number, then that's when we start trying to work. We may not come up with nothing, but we might come back with what, I know I talked to you about one time, can we do this over 2 years? Can we, what can we do? So we'll talk about options when it gets there. But if you remember, and go back to the very beginning, you're the guys that said, hey, look, we want to drive this train on this pay plan. Get us involved. And so that's what we did. So now we're just asking for your guidance on where you want us to go, not asking you to fund it. We don't, I mean, that's the budget committee's decision. But if you say, hey, I want my employees to be paid for tenure, I want them to be paid for that on the time, then I'll go to you, I promise. 1 second. Commissioner.
Yeah, we have a lot of funds within the county, whether it be the fund for the sheriff for this or that, the ag fund or something. The ag fund is 55% of all hotel tax. It goes there every month. In addition, they have their budget, of course. And we're getting more and more hotels in the county. I know mostly you want to do things for tourism and all that stuff, motel tax. But it seems to me as we're getting more and more hotels in the county, it's not going to take care of 11 million, but isn't there some money in that area that we could redirect?
So let's just talk about that. That money that's there has been growing over time, okay?
Right.
You wouldn't want to base your reoccurring revenue on hotel motel tax, number one. But second, you are using it all right now. That's what Aaron uses every penny of it to balance our budget. And you're right about 55% of it funding the Ag Center. That is their revenue. They also take the revenues of where they sell stuff, but we replace
They
that.
have a budget in addition to that.
But that is their funding source for their budget. Because we used to put so many pennies of the property tax in there, and we don't do that no more. We put the hotel motel tax in there for that,
Every year when they
and
get a-
tourism.
It comes out of that ag fund.
That's their revenue, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We did that because people didn't want property tax in there. So they do that. Commissioner Smith's Health and Welfare Committee, the Economic Development Committee, and the
Tourism.
Tourism, yes, sir. So because we think that's what they want to, let's take their money, hotel, motel folks' money, and they're putting heads in beds and put that towards what funds them. That make sense? So there's none left over there.
It is recurring.
I would love
money
to give
comes
this
in.
It is recurring money, and you're using every penny of it today, and it'll grow some next year, but that'll be part of the growth money that Aaron's going to talk about when he says we got $2 million in growth money. It'll be a part of that. Sir, that's part of the growth money.
Growth money for,
Yes, sir. Well, that's what you guys grant needs with. Commissioner Breeze? Or you may go with somebody else for a second?
well, it depends on what we're looking for. So, okay, I can get you, all right. So there is a judge's tax that we haven't changed since 2008. And it's supposed to be set so it actually pays for our judges. So I can get I'm sorry, not I. The county commission could change the judge's tax and come up with another about 400,000. I apologize for not having exact numbers. I don't have them on me right now. So there's some revenue. So there are some small buckets like that. There are not many. I think Aaron would be good to speak to this as well. But we have a little bit of flexibility here depending upon what we're trying to look for. This is why I was really hoping, this is why I abstained from that vote at the very beginning of this meeting, because I wanted these numbers, and then I really would like to go back and look at our revenue options.
But let me caution you. I don't want you to fund it. You're not here to try to figure out how to fund it. That is the Budget Committee's job. All I'm asking is, what is your flavor? Do you want to pay them for their tenure? You want to pay them for their tenure and their 10% increase? Do you want to move step 6? That's all I'm asking for. The funding will happen when it comes budget time, when we got an actual number, and then you can kind of go to work and others can go to work and say, we can find it here, we can find it here, we can find it here. But I don't want you to not to say, let's find the money, because that's not what this committee's about. They're just giving me direction on how big of an apple you want us to buy.
But I think
Pick one.
You can pick one, you can pick all three. What is the flavor of the committee, Commissioner?
On that 9.1 million option, you call it the 10%,
That's 10% plus putting people in tenure.
okay. But I guess this kind of goes along with what Mike said. If we did half this year, half next year, but can we just say, that's what I want you to carry to the department heads, is half, include number 1 and half of number 2.
Okay, so include the tenure, and let's do half of the table this year and half of the raise of the table next year.
If we can.
Gotcha.
Is that your motion?
Yeah.
Well, we need to find revenue sources if we're gonna go out, because people gonna talk about this.
That's what I was, that ain't our job.
They're gonna be all
That ain't our job. That's
Yeah.
what I was.
Yeah. I mean,
Is there?
this, I mean,
But
as a,
that's
well,
we need to know what we don't want to tell everybody we're gonna try to give them a raise and we can't.
well, I mean, that's what we did when we said, hey, let's engage in this committee and look at what we got. We're not doing good.
You're giving
Let's
us
come up with it.
four options.
I am,
All
yeah.
we're doing is passing it on to budget time, right?
Right.
I mean, if you want to take it,
Trying to say, but
Yeah.
maybe I'm not saying it right.
And at the end of the day, we can all vote on it on the floor if it gets to it.
Commissioner?
And I apologize for bringing this up to begin with, but when I was a kid, I grew up in Donaldson. 6 years old, 5 years old, go to Cooper and Martin grocery store. Eagles fly on Friday. And I'd throw stuff in that cart. I was as good as I could be. And then we'd get out the line. And then that little old chrome piece that the conveyor wouldn't move, all my stuff would be sitting out there. The problem with doing that like this is just what Chad said. Everybody's listening to what we do and what we're talking about. And if our expectations are we're gonna jump this pay plan up, and then just to find out how much it costs at the checkout line, and then everybody says we can't do it, then people are going to think that we don't want to pay our employees. I want to pay our employees, but I'm just going to tell you, if we hook employee pay to property tax, that's the worst thing we do to our employees. They'll never get a raise. This is never going away. The thing that increases fastest of everything in our budget is probably payroll. And that's never going to stop. And for us to launch into this as a funding source,
We're beyond that.
by golly, we're basically just telling the employees they're never going to get another real good raise for another 10, 12 years. And I don't think that's fair. I think the most fair way to go about this is to try to drag it out over time, do as much as we can, as fairly as we can to all the constituents across the county, the ones that do live in cities and the ones that don't live in cities, and do it like the cities do. They don't raise their property taxes and give raises. They do it in the priority of their budgets, and they've done it over time because they've realized that this isn't going away. This is never going to go away.
So I'm going to go back to Commissioner, hang on one second. But I want to agree with you, Bobby, and I want Aaron to echo this for me. That is why the last plans that we brought you have been what they were, because we looked at the amount of money we had and said, this is all we can afford. Am I right, Aaron? And we brought it to you and said, hey, let's do that. But you said, hey, look, no, we want to do better. And then, so the only choice I had was when you said, hey, y'all, as a committee, go figure out this, this, and this. I mean, y'all told me to do that. So that's what we did. Now, I will say back the 2 times we've raised taxes, 35 cents was the last time. 7 cents was the first time. And I think y'all have done a tremendous job, by the way, of not raising taxes 2 times, I think, in 17 years. So you've done that. And there's sometimes you just have to, I guess. But back when we did the 35 cent, we gave some money to employees that time, did we not, Aaron? We did. We gave payroll with that one, as well as some other things that we did. So you have raised taxes for pay before, just going back to that. Not that I want to or whatever.
Believe it or not, I agreed with everything Bobby Franklin just said. Bobby may not believe it. If we wait to the end
You don't have a copy.
and expect property tax to fund employee raises, you're right. We'll never get it. But that's where I was a year and a half ago, preaching that if we wait, the employees aren't going to get anything because we're doing all this building, and I'm not saying we didn't need it, but you're right, Bobby. But a year and a half ago, I said, if we do this, this is what's going to happen. And there was kind of an agreement that, hey, hold on, let's get through this, and then we'll take back up employee pay. And that was kind of when, if y'all remember, when the bond got voted down the first time. That's why it got voted down, because we weren't willing to pass that without taking employee pay. Well, then we kind of said, okay, we'll look at employee pay, but now we're saying, whoa, we're not going to look at employee pay at all if we have to raise taxes. So I guess I have just an issue, and this isn't what we're here for tonight, but at the end of the day, I don't know what it's going to cost. But our employees deserve to be paid what they deserve to be paid.
Commissioner McFarland?
Two things. One, several years ago, we raised taxes to give the teachers.
Teachers raise, yeah.
And our employees, yeah, you're right.
I got problems from here. Love you.
Yep.
On the border.
And I thought several people, they told me it did not do them any good. Because we raised their taxes. That was not right. And every county employee will be exactly the same way. The deputy sheriff, and you own a house and 5 acres, we're gonna raise your taxes and I'll turn around and give you more money. It's essentially a wash.
It's not a wash. I love you, but that's not a wash. We can do the math all day long, and if I raise your taxes 10 cents and give you a $5,000 raise, you didn't lose.
Aaron, I love you, but I got the floor.
He has the purse strings, though.
To wash or not, that's what I was told. That's what it's all about. So the other thing I was gonna make mention of is Commissioner Breeze made mention that there may be additional sources of revenue out there. I'd recommend she look and see what sources of revenue could be. We don't need to be planning on spending money until we got the revenue to spend it. I don't go out and spend money out of my checkbook unless I got income coming into it. So I think we're trying to spend money and then trying to figure out how to pay for it. I think we look for additional, so Aaron and Lauren can look for additional.
I got the floor, sir.
Is that correct?
No, just another thing real quick. It's like, it seems like we're in a position, we're just coming up, looks like we would want to give them the best option.
That's right.
And then figure out what we can do.
Or, I mean, I think you could look at it, and I guess what I was hoping you was going to do is you could say, you know, I think I could back getting those tenure people taken care of. I could back the $3 million. Or maybe you could say, you know, I think to be competitive and to stay on target, we need to probably bite off the $9.1 million. And I'll be willing to do that, and we'll go back and see what money we can find. Can we do it over time? You know, I mean, because we may be able to find some revenue and do it over time. And
Argue on that long thing.
Yeah.
Never figure out his out.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, who had the floor? Beth, I'm coming to you, I promise.
Can I comment just for a second?
Yep.
Say that I've already had Lauren do just that. We've spent months looking for sources of revenue, which is how we even know a judge's tax exists.
She brought it up.
Yeah,
Still sitting in my office.
there's not a lot, but I will let, Lauren did most of that. So there's not a lot. That's the biggest piece, basically.
Okay.
On $11 million sitting somewhere else.
Yeah.
You got pretty big.
What's your estimation of it not being a wash? You think that we would give them $100 for $70 or what?
You want to make that motion?
Yeah, I can do that math real quick on a $400,000 house if you want to.
I'm just telling you what I'm.
Yeah, well, that is the perception. I think it was what John said. That's the perception that people have.
It's not true.
A lot of people have, everything is based on their perception, but the reality of the situation is a far cry different. You know, your property taxes didn't go up enough to offset your raise.
It
Right.
may be a perception, but I had school teachers tell me that.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say there's school teachers that can't do math, but maybe there's a few.
Yeah.
I heard a bunch of them.
So I guess, and I'm gonna go to Beth in just a second, but I guess my thinking coming in here was that you probably would tell me, hey, let's look at our table for sure going up, because we've got to be even with people. We've got to be able to pay our people and get and obtain good employees. So push that table up at 10%, and plug in the tenure. Plug both of those in, not do the step back to 6. We don't have to do that. Do those two. Go out and meet with our people, find out how that goes, find out what that bottom dollar really is, see if there's any extra revenue, or can we break it up over time, and kind of go forth that way. You know, and then we'll decide, the budget committee can decide, hey, we can't do all that. Let's break it over 3 years. Let's do it over 2 years. Or no, we found enough revenue to go here and here. I mean, that can be something that we can do. Aaron, did you have something?
I just wanted to point out, and I think Commissioner Kurtz is not wrong in talking about building, but I guess what I keep coming back to is if we had moved funds out of the debt service fund into the general fund to pay for employee compensation, it still would have been property tax. I don't care how you go about this, what's undergirding your employment is property tax. In the cities, it's not that, it's sales tax. And guess what? We just gave them a half-cent sales tax increase to kick our butt with.
Right.
We just, for education, did a half-cent sales tax increase, which the cities then used to turn around and kick our rear ends.
We didn't, the voters did.
That's right.
This commission didn't do it, the voters did.
But the cities didn't help. The cities didn't sign on and say, let me help you get your half-cent sales tax increase.
And I think, Commissioner Hall, what we're saying is that we knew to get teacher pay up, and we said, hey, if you'll vote for it, and it worked out, and it did. So I go back and I'll say this about regardless, the services that I believe that we provide in the county are good services, and the only way I got to pay for those services is property tax. I got a few other little dingers here and there. So I know nobody ever wants to do that, but I got good people. Some of them sitting right back here in the back, and I got people that I got to take. I mean, they're not going to work for free, and the only way I fund them is property tax. Whether we do the shell game, we say, well, let's move the money out of debt service and pay them here or there. At the end of the day, what Aaron's saying is right, and I have to be able to say, okay, I got to look somebody in the eye and say, I want you to work for me, but I really don't want to pay you. I can't do that. And as we know, we got into the deal with Director Cooper and Sheriff Bryan to where they couldn't get people, you know, and we were sitting here and, you know, we went crazy there for a little while trying to get people. So I don't think we want to get to that place again. I mean, I know property tax is a negative word, but you got people that do a good job, and you got to compensate them. And you got to stay within the market. That's why we're doing the study. We don't want to be more, but we definitely want to be able to obtain and retain the best people, because I don't want a second-class person in the back of the ambulance taking care of me if I've had a heart attack. I mean, I want good folks. So, I mean that piece, I don't know how to get around it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I want to ask Aaron a question. How much, across the whole county budget, every department, how much 99 money is out there? 3, 4, 5, 6, 99?
I don't know that total figure, but I'll get it for you.
Can you guess?
Sure, let's just for argument's sake, just because, let's say it would actually fund the paper.
Argument's like a guess. I mean,
Yeah, 15 million. That's probably way high, but I'll throw that number out there.
What was the
solve every problem.
I don't know, I didn't hear it.
99 money.
99 money. But we've already been through and dove down into all those lines, which we can do some more, and there's not basically unneeded money.
Does everybody in here know what I'm talking about?
Nobody in here doesn't know your question.
$399 other contracted services, $499 other supplies and materials, $599 other charges. We dove into every one.
There's 99, 4, 399, 499, 599 on money that's out there for other contracted services. And I know for a fact that some departments do a year and they spend it all. If half of what 99 is for things that's not budget, there's budget for fuel and budget for tires or whatever, but that's just open to buy anything you want to buy. If half of that money was available, we'd solve our problem tonight. You
Yep.
say 15 million's out there?
And I promise you half that money's not available, but we'll look at it, we'll have,
Not available.
because it's actually needed. If you would basically have to redesign that line, reallocate that line out to other lines in the budget because it's all obligated for stuff that they need.
Well, I'd ask Joey Cooper. You know,
Don't pick on Joey.
would you take half of your 99 lines to give it a raise?
No.
No, and I'll tell you why, because if you want the best
Hey, I just asked
service in this department, you take away $3.99, which services our monitors, they service our cots. I mean, whole 9 yards, they do the fire extinguishers. They do the ladder testing, the hose testing, those are the lines, that's what that money is for. And even on the fire side, so if you take that away, you're not gonna have any of those services, so we're gonna have to shut down. We're not gonna test hoses, we're not gonna test ladders, so we can't use your trucks.
Three, 4, and 5.99.
$5.99 is like dues.
Yeah.
That we pay for, like my EMA directors meetings,
The question was, could you do with half the money in each one of those lines?
No.
Fire marshal has his,
This is not discretionary funds.
It's not
EMS, board of directors meetings, they pay for that.
Well, yeah, I agree with that.
So $4.99 pays for our medical our, medical investigators, whatever he uses.
The question was, could you trim any of that off
No,
salary?
no, not without cutting service.
Question, thank you very much.
And I think the other piece to that, and I'll come to you, Lauren, the other piece of that is when we look at $3.99, $4.99, and $5.99, the only reason they exist is because the charges in there don't fit in any other category. It's not that they're a slush fund. They just don't fit in any other, they don't fit in fuel, they don't fit in employees, so you have to put them somewhere. Is that not true?
And it also allows some flexibility in
Yeah.
what they can purchase.
Yeah, but it's not a slush fund. It's not a reserve. Commissioner Fields is next, and I go to Commissioner Breeze.
Since this meeting is about giving the mayor some direction, giving us some options, personally, I like what Commissioner Marlowe said. We do the tenure and we do the next one over a 2-year period, but I would like to spread it out over 3 years. With the intention that if there's money left from the first year, that we put it in a designated account for the second year and vice versa. And then after that 3-year period, then we can reevaluate it.
Yeah, so if you just tell me that, hey, I want to do the tenure and the 10% table, then we'll take that and run that route. And then how you fund it, if you want to break it up over 3 years, that'll be, you guys can discuss that at budget time. Yeah.
Is that a motion?
I didn't make it.
Is that a motion, Mr. Fields? I'll second that.
Motion.
Second.
Can I please interject something before you make a motion? Please. If you split increasing your table over 3 years, what will happen is in 3 years, you will be very behind the market again. Because it has been 2 years since you increased the table at all, and the needed increase to reach where everyone else is, your competitors for employees, other public sector employers, is 10%. So that's been an average of 5% per year. Now, some of that movement with other cities and counties has been a result of all of the volatility caused by COVID. And some of that is quieting down. But what my colleague and I are still seeing is other cities and counties doing 4% and 5% increases even this year. So expected for July 1 of 2025. Okay, so if you do not increase your table this year, and that extends another year, then expect the needed increase to your table a year from now to be 15% to get you level with market. The further you put off increasing your table of what everybody's paid today, the more you're going to need to increase it. So if you split it over a couple of years, say 5% this year, 5% next year, the following year, you're still going to be behind. What my recommendation was to increase that table 10% is to get you equivalent with other employers. Yes, you can split it over time to try to save money, and I understand that 100%. But I want to caution you against thinking that's going to keep you equivalent by doing it over 2 or 3 years. It will not. The market continues to move whether you do or not.
Thank you.
And the other thing I want to just mention while I'm still talking, I know, I'm sorry, I just haven't, I've been bottling it up, is there are other options that we can do. I know that you want to pay your employees for tenure, but if you pay them year for year versus the steps, so if somebody has 5 years, they go to step 5. If they have 8 years, they go to step 8, and so on. That is much more aggressive of a tenure schedule than any of our other clients usually do. What we usually do is something that says, okay, if you have between 1 and 3 years, you go to step 1. And as an example, not exactly, but, or 3 to 5 years, you go to step 2. And 5 to 7 years, you go to step 3, and so on. And you don't go quite as aggressive as year for year to the step table. We can do an alternative tenure-based schedule that gets people further out on the step table, but does not cost quite as much as the example that we've done the estimates on. And so it still puts some space between your new employees and your long service employees, but doesn't necessarily get them to the very top all in one fell swoop. But if your concern is money, and I understand budget is a very big issue, there are a couple of things we can do. One, you can give me a dollar amount and say, hey, what can we do for X? And I can run numbers to fit X and give you options. Okay, well, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this to meet this dollar amount. The other thing we can do is we can look at, well, we can move the table this amount, and if we try to do tenure, we can make alternative tenure schedules to get people at different rates. So not necessarily people with 16 years go to step 16, but maybe people with 16 years go to step 8 or 9. And so that saves you quite a bit of money.
But that's exactly what our employees want. They want the steps. They want to know, if I've been here 16 years, I want to be on step 16.
Steps can be arbitrary.
That's fine if you afford it.
I know that that's what your employees want, and that's what everybody's employees want, but unfortunately, money isn't always there for what people want.
Commissioner Breeze?
Okay, you guys all know I'm a data person. And this is the first time we've seen any numbers. And I would love to be able to give you guidance tonight. I know that's what you want. But this is the first time we've seen these numbers. So, I mean, I can tell you, and this comes from the trustee report. So if you go back and look at your trustee report that we get every quarter or so, and you look at the total amount for 24 and compare it to the total amount of 23, that is going to be your ballpark growth money for property taxes right there. So in total, okay, so this is total, is $6.9 million. Now that's for all of the growth for property tax. So you have to break that up based on their penny allocations, which I don't have in front of me. So you've got to break it up with schools, with roads, with debt service, and solid waste, and so on. So, I mean, and I don't have the pennies in front of me. So that I can give you right now. I am almost inclined to ask to recess this meeting until Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, because we already have animal control, we already have sanitary sewer, and that gives us a little bit of time to look at these numbers. Everybody can go home and look at their budget and kind of get an idea as to kind of where everybody stands, and then we can give you some guidance, and that still should give you a good week before you're supposed to meet with department heads.
I don't have any problem doing that. The only thing that I'm thinking about, again, you're taking on the funding mechanism, and that's the budget committee's job. You need to give me direction on how do you want to take care of your employees. Do you want to give them a 10% bump because that's what the market says? And do you want to pay them, you want to base them on tenure, or you want her to go back and say, hey, we ain't going year for year, but we'll go, or year for step, but we'll do a range. Once you relook at that, I can do that pretty easy. But I think you can go home all day and look for money, but that's going to be those people that run the budget committee's call.
I hear you.
Yeah,
I guess I just have a hard time.
I don't mind waiting.
I don't know where there's funding.
I don't want to wait.
But
I
again,
think we need a sense.
that's just my opinion. I'm just 1 of 25.
What was her recommendation, her opinion on the,
Her opinion, what she was saying is that she looked at the data, and if we don't increase the table 10%, we're going to be behind again. That part.
might be the best way to go about it?
She was saying that if we said, hey, look, let's do it over 3 years or let's do it over 2 years, by the time we got there, we're going to be behind even further because they're going to keep going up.
She had said something about it.
She was saying putting tenure into buckets. So basically.
Oh, yeah.
That wouldn't get us behind.
You would take the 1 to 5 year people and put them into, let's say, step 2. I'm pulling something out of the air.
Tell us that again.
Tenure your people into buckets.
What we do for several of our clients that want to, you've got a lot, for example, if we come in and set up a new plan or we need to do something because you've got people compressed and a lot of people, no matter how many years of service they have, all being paid the same rate or very close. We come in and we develop a couple of options of schedules that say, okay, maybe you start with anybody who has 1 to 3 years of service in their job. We're going to say as long as you're going to be at step 1, you're okay. Then if you have between 3 to 5 years of service, we're going to put you in step 2. And then 5 to 7 will put you in step 3 or something to that effect. You basically will group a number of years
With each step.
in a step. And you can even say, all right, if you've only been here a year, you're going to be in step 1. If you've been here years 2 to 4, you're in step 2. That way, if you've been here at least 2 years, you go to step 2. And then just break it up. And you can even break it up in groups of 2 years, 3 years. You can vary it however you want. And you can say, well, if you've been here 7 years, that's where we want you to hit our market step, or 8 years, we want you to hit our market step. And then if you've been here 15 years or more, we want to make sure you're at step 10 or beyond, and make sure that people get to certain rates.
So,
But we can kind of
Yeah. And so
do those schemes and kind of see how that works. And the other thing is, the tenure piece is something would be more of my suggestion to break over even half a year. Say, okay, let's move the table X July 1, and then the second step is move everybody with their tenure schedule. Let's do that January 1. That saves us half a year, or the next July 1. So if you need to break things out, do it in pieces. We can also look at, okay, maybe we only move the table 8% or 7%. That won't put us as far behind, but it'll get us so much closer. I wouldn't necessarily go down to 5%.
Saying would be more realistic.
As far as keeping up with your competitors for employees.
Yeah. Commissioner Kurtz?
Buckets of tenure is kind of where we're at now. I mean, that's what started this whole conversation that people reached out to me and were upset about, especially when you look at people that are closing in on retirement. It's killing them because they're making the same amount of money that somebody's been here 10 years and they've been here 20 or 25, there was some compression in there, and I don't know what the cutoff was, 7 or 8 years, and just something like that.
And I think the goal of what you were saying back in the day when we were having the discussion about it was that our table wasn't terrible. but everybody was on the front end, nobody was on the back end. If they was on the back end,
right.
they'd be making as much as the other people are in these other areas, and so that's why you were trying to move them that way. And again, we're only talking 385 people, which is a lot.
But that's what
Yeah,
drove
what you were
all the
saying.
conversations when people were like, well, hold on, how am I this and how am I that? And
Well, what we did initially in the 21-22 year, when we did the very first adjustment with Steve and myself, I don't know what you might have done prior to us, but we did a conservative tenure-based adjustment, very conservative,
In buckets.
with larger buckets.
Because that's all we could afford at the time.
Exactly, because we had a small budget and we kept it to the minimum.
Yeah.
And so that's why you have that issue, because it was everybody that was 10 years and up all went kind of in the same spot. We can spread that out a little bit more and make sure that people with higher years of service get spread out.
Commissioner Marlowe?
A while ago, I made a motion and it got a second, but we never did vote on it, therefore it died. So I'm going to make a motion now that we give you the guidance of looking at step one and step two, combining step one and step two. And when it comes to the budget committee with the information that y'all gather and provide, at that point in time, we determine what we can afford and how we're going to afford it.
I'll second that.
Question?
So got a motion and a second. Let me just restate his statement. He said me to take scenario A and scenario B, that's the way it's listed on our thing, and go forth with that. Go to our department head meetings, elected officials. Once we clear that, come back to you with actual numbers. Then you can forward that on the budget and then on the county commission. You got a question here, and I know you're guarding this. Go ahead.
I've heard comments from somewhere that are we gonna meet next Tuesday night, and if we are, and like this lady to bring us the rest schedule back and give us an example up on the screen, before we make a final decision of if we've been here 1 year, you step one, you've been here 3 years, you jump to step two or whatever, so.
Hey, Jerry, can we put that, if he allows us to put that as an option too?
I'd like to see what our schedule's talking about.
That's what I'm saying, but could we put that in?
I mean, she can bring you a table back that's 10% raised, but I don't know what good that's going to do for you to look at that. I mean, and she can't do the numbers until we go and talk to Joey Cooper and Sheriff Bryan and all them. We don't know what they're going to say, yes or no. That's when you want. That's when I'm going to come back to you and let you look at that table then, so you'll know exactly what they agreed on. I mean, right now, just be guessing.
What do you mean they agreed on?
Well, I mean, we take these numbers and go see them and say, this is what the market's saying. Can you hire people for that? And that's what this next scrimmage is all about. But we wanted direction.
The current's not approval.
Yeah.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I'll be out of town next week.
Okay.
I'll be meeting with another client, the East Tennessee, so I won't be here. I won't be able to be here next Tuesday. I'm sorry.
So we had the motion, the second, Commissioner Fields. Anything else?
I had altered my motion for Commissioner Marlowe earlier. I want to withdraw that one. So, remember, I was going to do the tenure and the.
Okay. I'm going to turn this back over to you. I'm just, you're in charge of the committee. So you got a motion, a second on the floor, and I'll let you go from there.
Any discussion on Commissioner Marlowe's motion?
Would you restate it, Wendell, please, sir?
We're going to, I don't know.
I can do it for you.
I'm asking, yeah, please do.
So what he's asking is to take the scenario A, which gives everybody on the chart based on their tenure that they have in time of service right now, which is 3.1 that we estimate. It could change. And then also add the table, turn the table up 10% because that's what the market suggests for us to do at this time. And then take those two, compile a table, go meet with all elected officials and department heads and come back to you.
I like it.
Let's price that again.
Sir?
9?
9-1.
Any other discussion?
And the 9-1 will be the total, not 9-1 plus 3-1.
Yes, one more.
9-1.
And that's with benefits.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
So here's what, thank you for that. We're going to start through this process. We're going to go through, we'll bring you back sheets of what the sheriff, we won't come back to you until Joey and the sheriff and everybody else and Steve Gatlin and Josh Major and them say, hey, look, we're good with this. If you can get this, we can hire deputies, we can hire EMTs, all that. We'll bring that back to you, let you take as many days as you want to look at it. And then once you finish that, then it'll have a price tag, and you can say, hey, look, yeah, I'd like to recommend that to the budget committee, or you may say, we don't want to recommend that to the budget committee, we want to take this off and recommend that. We'll let you make that recommendation to them, and then they'll start going through, we'll be in the budget process, then you all got a calendar, should last week or so, and I plugged this piece into that. I mean, I know this is tough. We knew that going in, but we said, hey, we need to tackle and see where we are. And I know nobody wants to raise property tax too. I got that. But it's just one of those things we got to make the sausage and see what happens. Yes?
When do you expect to be able to come back to this committee with that information after meeting with?
She's starting the department head meetings in February around the 12th. So it'll take her 30 days maybe to get everything done and get everybody signed off on. And as soon as we do that, we'll come back and get it to you guys. And then we'll take as long as y'all want to take. Because then you'll actually have true data in front of you. I mean, it's like she cautioned me today when I said 385 employees with a tenure. She said, now, we hire and fire people every day, or people leave every day. So this is an estimate. It's going to change a little bit between now and then. And this was numbers that we actually looked at in October, November, whenever the last time you got them. So it'll change some, but it's not going to change a bunch. Yes?
What do we earn, what do we make on wheel tax the way it is right now?
Gosh, I want to say around 5 million.
It's 3.
3?
It's $25 to get you 3.
Should have went with my first guess. My first was 3, and I thought I was guessing low.
Yes, sir, yeah. 25 will get you 3.
Up into 25?
You're not locked into anything. You got 25 on there. You could raise it 50 and get 6. I think that's right.
I'll say this, I talked to my parents the other day, I'm from Kentucky, they're paying $800 on wheel tax. Well, it's a personal property tax in order to get your tag. So it's a percentage of what your car's worth or vehicle's worth. So, it's outrageous.
Yeah. So if we've got 150,000 cars, let's say, give or take, $25, that's 3.75. Beth?
So just a clarification, I know we're the scenario that y'all have voted to move forward with. So we are ditching the idea of an alternative tenure schedule completely.
At this time, yes.
Okay, because I don't want to show the department heads the current tenure schedule if there was any possibility that there would be an alternative, because that would just confuse
If you
things.
want to show alternatives, you show it to this committee after you get the data.
What I think what she's saying is that if we go the year per step, and she shows, I'm going to pick on Mr. Gatlin back here, back when he was in law enforcement, that he is going to be making this. Now, he won't see those because she's only going to be talking to Sheriff Bryan, Lance Howell, and them. So individuals won't see that, but they will see that and think, well, these are what my people are going to make, and then we come back and say, well, we're not going to do that tenure. But I think that happens probably with every county around. They look and say, what can I do? And they come back and say, well, this is reality. I can't do that. So I think we do get into that in other
Well, if
places.
I showed them one set of, okay, this is the plan that we hope to take to Budget Committee and commissioners to be passed, and then the decision is, nope, we're not going to do that, then that would require a whole nother round of meetings with the department heads to come back and say, nope, we're not going to do that.
Well, I'm gonna challenge you just a little bit on that, okay? So what he's talking about tenure is individual people.
Right, but
What you're going to be talking with Sheriff Bryan, Joey Cooper, and them is my 10% table increase about hiring people.
individual employee figures.
I understand that. But what they will sign off on is not Steve Gatlin getting a big raise. They're going to sign off, yes, I can hire the EMT for that start out pay and that market rate. I mean, that's what we're going back to them.
So I should not be going over with the department heads. I should not take the individual employee increase pages and talk to them about, we're planning to do this and a tenure schedule for the employees.
Our table is based upon the fact of what is a hiring rate for a deputy and what's a top out rate. That's the conversations you're having, not individual people are going to get this kind of a raise. These 99 are going to get this big raise. I mean, I'm sure they're happy with that and they care about that, but they're really more concerned about how can I obtain people and keep people. That tenure would be a great thing. Beth, Kiana?
I'm not sure that's the case.
Okay.
Especially, and maybe Joey's here to speak to it, but Sheriff Bryan, he's gonna wanna see exactly how this is going to affect his employees. Beth knows, we've been in those meetings together, especially your larger departments. They wanna know how that's gonna affect their individual people. And I know this may not be a very positive statement, but if we need to reschedule the department head elected official meetings until we get this pretty good ironed out, then that might be our best choice. Because we don't want to take things to our department heads and elected officials, and then a couple months down the road, it's totally changed.
So Kiana, I'm going to challenge you on that then, and the fact that, okay, you're saying to me, hey, Mayor, until you come up with the money, we're not going to talk to nobody. And if that's the case, then we'll regroup and go all the way back, and I have no problem doing that. But that's what you're saying. If I don't have the money, I'm not going to go talk to those people. And and I think in doing that, not only would I need to go to this group, I need to go to the Budget Committee and the County Commission.
If we don't have the money, why are we here?
Because you wanted to look at raising your people's pay, and you asked me that, and you said, I got to know what that cost. You got to find out what it costs before you could say, I don't want to do it. We can't just say, I don't want to do it because I don't know what it costs. I mean, we had to get to today. Now, if you tell me today, hey, scratch this thing, let's wait till next month, or y'all kind of come up with the money, then that's.
To your point, previously, we had worked out the money before we went to the department heads and elected officials.
You're right. And that's why it was always not as hefty as it is tonight, although we've carried some $5 million to them too that we could afford.
And I can do some estimates with alternative tenure schedules the same way I did the estimates that I gave you today. I just have to run the numbers. It'll be estimates. They would change based on hires and fires and that kind of thing. But I can still do some estimates with alternatives. I just want to know what I need to.
Yeah, and I appreciate you offering that, but the estimates, or give me $5 million and I'll make that work. That's all great stuff to talk about, but at the end of the day, it's not what we're here for. We're here to say that we want to keep the pay rate at 10%, and that we want to go year for year. And if y'all say to me, hey, look, let's put a hold on that until we go out and find $1.1 million before we go meet with those people, I'm okay with that too. We can go back and start trying to hash that now before we have those meetings, like Kiana said. I'm not pushing it. But if y'all want me to, as what I've heard Commissioner Smith and others say, hey, we didn't know what this is before we started the budget. We didn't know how much money we're talking about, so I can't wait till budget time to do it. But if y'all want to put the budget first and say, hey, look, let's start doing some work sessions, or it's not work sessions. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that word. If we want to do some investigation and try to find $9.1 million before we have the regular meetings, I'm okay with that.
Doing it this way, I understand the thinking. However, the last time we did it, the feedback I got from people, some of the department heads were, well, you came in and told me what my raises were going to be. You came in and told me where we're going to end. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't move them around, or I couldn't tell you what, and I'll tell you, Robert got up and walked away said, I'm not going to do it. And then he came back in and he agreed to something where this way, going in and saying, we may not be able to afford this, this isn't approved, but can you agree if this is where we end up? I think that's what we're going out and saying, basically. At least you're giving them the latitude to say, this is where I want my people to be, or I can agree to this or not that, and then it's up to us to fund it or not.
And I want to go back while we got just a second. So that meeting, because I had a conversation with those two ladies and had a conversation with Robert Bryan and said, "Did you get up and leave? You know, or tell me what happened there." And he and them said no, that he did not. And I'm not and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying I asked him about that. And so and I think the conversation, it goes back to where is that we said, hey, look, this is all the money we got, and this is what the data shows. Now, if you want to pay them more than that, that's out of our hands. We can't. So that's what this is as far as we can go. But so what really happened on that? Because I know we've had that conversation before.
So, to my knowledge, he was never angry or upset. I mean, we had conversations. We tried to work with him on what's an appropriate amount to pay your deputies, and we had discussions. But to my knowledge, he was never unhappy or angry. He never addressed that with me or Steve.
Okay.
And we worked with him. We talked to him about, well, what is a starting rate that will work for you, and what makes sense for you. We tried to ask those kinds of questions. That's what we always do with sheriffs, because we know that is a very high-profile position, and we always do our best to work with the sheriff department to try to get those numbers to where they think they can hire new deputies. And we talked about and we looked at the
We've already voted.
pay grades that we had put together, and we said, okay, well, these are the numbers. And we even talked about, well, maybe you start your deputies here and ignore the first two grades or steps in the scale, or the first percentile and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So our conversations were about questions of what works.
Okay, and to your point, I have a letter that's going to go out because I want my department heads and elected officials to feel like they got to say so. So you're going to get that letter. We've been working on that with Kiana and Aaron myself because I want them to feel like, you're telling me what the pay is. I mean, we're going to have Aaron and Kiana in that meeting with Beth, and we're going to discuss this is where it's at, but I can't have, but so just to say there's some parameters, but I want them to feel like they got to say so because of what you told me on that. I want them to feel like I can question that. I can say, show me some more data, that kind of stuff. Yes, sir.
Two things. Number one, it's good to give department heads the ability to share with what they're thinking about. But in the end, it is our responsibility to determine what that pay is going to be. It's not the department heads. Number two, we cannot vote anymore because we don't have a quorum. We've already made.
We can't even adjourn. We got to stay here.
That's right. So since we can't change anything, we've already voted on the motion that's already. So can we go home now?
We're done.
You can go home as far as I'm concerned. I guess that's Mr. Fields' call.
Need one more motion.
Let's adjourn.
Thank you.